Okay, it looks like it's kind of leveled off. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's NCLUG presentation for the NCDOT OpenX Rollout Week. OpenX refers to all of the different Bentley Connect Edition products, which there are many. There's Open Roads, Open Bridge, so on and so forth. So we just called it OpenX just to kind of give it and I think that's what they're calling it internally. NCLUG is proud to partner with NCDOT to bring you these unit updates. This session's webinar will be focused on the NCDOT CADD Services rollout. Before beginning, we have a few housekeeping details. This webinar is a presentation, so all attendees will be muted. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can post your questions in the chat box, which will be monitored and answered right away or during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We will be recording this webinar and share the link after the event has finished. NCLUG is offering PDH credits to those who have registered online for this event. After the session, NCLUG will send out PDH receipts to those who attended the live meeting. Credit will not be given to those who view the recorded presentation. And now, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Ethan Schwartz and Elizabeth Lee with the CADD Services unit, who will be presenting for this session.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second presentation of the NCLUG event. Today, we're going to be talking about the CADD services, and we're going to look at the rollout of the new workspace. My name is Ethan Schwartz, and with me is Elizabeth Lee. We are the Bentley Expert Advisors to North Carolina Department of Transportation, and we will try to answer some of the basic questions you may have today about the new NCDOT workspace for the Open Roads Designer. We will have some Q&A time at the end, so if you have some additional questions, please feel free to post those in the chat. So let's start out by talking about software versions. As you may have heard, North Carolina is moving to Bentley's Open Road Designer software platform from the previous SS2, SS4 Power Geopack setup. You'll want to make sure that you've got the correct version of the software running. And I've got up on the screen now, these are the versions that North Carolina has got set up internally. And as you can see, for the Open Roads Designer, we're using 10.09.0091. You'll want to check back on the CADD Services webpage regularly to make sure you're using the same version as North Carolina if you're working on North Carolina projects. So let's get into the 10.9 workspace. First question we usually get is, how do you gain access to the 10.9 workspace? Since all DOT projects are supposed to be on ProjectWise, we're working on using the ProjectWise Manage Workspace feature. This will allow us to push out the workspace automatically as the files are accessed and edited on ProjectWise. What does that mean for you, the user? It means you don't have to worry about setting up anything. Just open your file from ProjectWise and start designing or editing. The Manage Workspace will automatically be applied. So as you get into ProjectWise and you look at the different files, when you open your file in ProjectWise to edit it, it'll push through the 10.9 workspace automatically into Open Roads Designer. What happens if your project isn't on ProjectWise? Well, this happens. Every now and again, you'll have to work outside of the ProjectWise environment. When you do, we have you covered for that as well. What you would do for that is, just like you do now, you'd go to the NCDOT website and you'd download a zip file. I've got on the screen now the website to access that. This is going to be on the CADD Resources page. And just like before, you can download the zip file and extract it to your C drive. And that should put everything in place that you need. So what do I do if my project is on ProjectWise? How do I gain access to that project? This is a little different process, and what you'll have to do is you'll have to talk to your IT administrator, and they'll get you set up on the correct data source. And for that, what they'll do is they'll add the configuration inside of ProjectWise to set up that data source. Other than that, it's a matter of the project manager setting up the proper project permissions for each designer with CAD services. Have them send an email if they need assistance, and we'll help them get it set up. And when you log into ProjectWise, you'll see all the data sources listed. You'll go into your data source, and underneath your data source on the left side of the ProjectWise screen, you should see all the projects that you have access to listed below. If you guys need to get some support with setting up those permissions, again, on the screen, I've got the email address. Have your project manager contact CADD Services at dot.pwsupport@ncdot.gov.
Ethan,
Yes.
I think you lost your screen.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Yeah, we lost your presentation screen. We see you. Okay, there you go. Okay, that works.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, please let me know if you're having any trouble seeing or hearing. Okay. So what about the Update Connect workspace? North Carolina used to use an application called Update Workspace. All right. This has been updated for the Connect version of the Bentley software. You'll still be able to use that, and it's still available on the CADD Services webpage. You'll be able to use Update Connect WS, which is the new version, to keep your standards up to date with North Carolina. However, you cannot use it for a direct install of the workspace locally. If you're installing a local copy of the workspace to your C drive, there are some files that must be placed in locations that can't be accessed by the Update Connect workspace program. So you have two choices. You can either place these files by hand, or you can go back to the zip file that I mentioned that's available on the CAD resources page. When you extract that zip file directly to your C drive, it will go ahead and place those files in the locations where they need to be. So how will I know and how will I get the latest version of the workspace? Well, if your project is on ProjectWise, you don't have to worry. We're going to make sure that that workspace is always up to date for all your NCDOT projects that are on ProjectWise. But just to reiterate, there are basically three ways you can do this. One is to do all your work on ProjectWise. That's just what we recommend. The second would be to use that Update Connect workspace routine, and you would use that before you get into your files to make sure you've got the latest version. And then the third way would be to download and extract that zip file to your C drive. How will I know which version of the software I'm supposed to be using in each project? When you open ProjectWise and you select a folder on the left, and you can see on my screen, I've got a couple of examples here. On the left side will be your projects listed under the data source. When you pick one of them, underneath the listing, there's an area with information about each of the projects. That will have a section called Project Software. Right? And in that project software, it'll let you know if you're using ORD, OBD, or if you're still on SS2, SS4. All right. If it shows SS2, SS4, it's an older project that either needs to be finished up in SS2, SS4, or we'll recommend that you convert it up to ORD to complete. Jeff showed a brief flow diagram earlier in the earlier presentation, if you guys were in there. We are working on a conversion guide that will spell out when and how to convert from older SS2 projects up to ORD, OBD projects. When that is finished, it should be available on the CADD Services webpage. If the project says ORD, OBD, we're talking about using 10.09. And in this case, Open Roads Designer and Open Bridge Designer are both on 1009, and you would use both of those or analysis of the projects. So what about 1010? When exactly will ORD 1010 be available for North Carolina? We're not quite yet. We will be testing and distributing the workspace development, testing and distributing 1010 for workspace development soon. We're just getting started with 10.9. What will happen is we'll get the new version of 10.10 when it comes out. We're going to test it internally on several types of setups to make sure it works on our machines. Then we'll work out with the CAD coordinators for each unit on testing out 10.10 with their standards and setting up new standards that need to be done. Then build up a complete workspace for 10.10 and test it out as a cohesive group, one workspace that covers all the units. Once it passes all those inspections, we can take a look at putting it out for publication. All right. So first we have to test it and make sure it works. Then we have to set up the standards. Then we can put 10.10 out as a workspace for everyone to do design. So how do I know which version to use? Always check with your project manager. Whatever version is selected for the project is the version you should be using. And we usually get a question after that of, can I just switch to 10.10 anyway for my design? The short answer is no, not for North Carolina DOT production work. Once a file has been opened in 10.10, it's set in the 10.10 file structure or schema, and 10.09 does not share the same structure. So converting back from 10.10 to 10.9 is not an easy process. It's proving to be somewhat difficult and messy so far. So you will not be able to use both versions on a project. Either everyone needs to be on 10.9 or everybody needs to move up to 10.10. And since NCDOT is on 10.9, for all NCDOT projects, you'll need to do all of your work on 10.9 for now. Since 10.10 can be installed side by side with 10.9, North Carolina DOT has no say on what you do for your other projects. You are welcome to install 10.10, but for any production work for NCDOT right now, we're asking you stick with 10.9. General information. So let me start by throwing out a definition. As we've been working on setting up these CAD standards, we've taken the concept of workspace as a whole, and we've kind of broken it into two parts. You've got the standards, which is things like line styles and cells and template libraries. And then you've got configurations, which is the background. How do we get the software to read all of the standards? So we've broken it into those two parts to kind of help figure out how to control or who's going to be in charge of which part. So unless there's a CAD emergency, which I don't see being too often, the standards are something that can be updated as needed. If the discipline unit has a specific standards change they need to make, they can push that out to the managed workspace practically instantaneously. If there's a new cell or a new line style or a new template that needs to be pushed out, they can update that in ProjectWise. We can push it up, and anything on ProjectWise should have immediate access to that. As far as the zip file and the update connect workspace goes, any updates made in ProjectWise should get to those within a day. So any of the standard changes that need to be made, it should be fairly easy to get those out to everyone practically immediately. Configurations are a bit of a different story. Those we'll need to take internally and test out with the other configurations to make sure that nothing conflicts. We want to make sure that all the different workspaces, or all the different disciplines, I should say, work together well. Internally, as we've been talking about this, we see the configuration updates being much more infrequent. And what we're going to aim to do is if we have any configuration updates, we plan on putting those out on a quarterly basis. Any changes to the configurations, again, you can get any of the same 3 ways. If it's on project-wise, configuration updates should automatically be pushed out. If the configuration changes, you can update with update connect WS, or you can download the zip file and re-extract it, and it should overwrite the old, excuse me, the old workspace. So who maintains these workspaces? And where do we go if we have issues with the workspace? Well, the North Carolina workspace as a whole has been broken down into the different units. So each unit is going to maintain their own standards on project-wise. What this means is that they will have access to change any of those standards that we talked about before. If you have an issue with any of that, if you need a new cell that you don't see or your line style, you would go directly to the CAD coordinator for that unit and have a discussion with them about getting those standards updated. Along with the unit-specific standards, we've also got some general North Carolina overall CAD standards. This is going to be things like if we have any fonts or general line styles that everyone uses, or cells like north arrows. In order to keep those consistent, we're going to centralize some North Carolina standards, and CAD Services then would be responsible for those, as well as making sure that all the configurations work together. So if you have any general standard issues, or if you have any configuration issues, that would be when you would contact CAD Services and talk to us about what needs to be changed. Where can we get training? That's usually the next question we get. Your first stop for all training should be learn.bentley.com. Right? This is an easy place for everybody to get to. As long as your company has got an account with Bentley, you should be able to get access to learn.bentley.com. And if you haven't been there yet, it's worth going to check out. This is Bentley's training location. You can look up any Bentley software and explore training videos for all aspects of that software. There is a ton of Open Roads Designer videos on this website. This is the same information that we at Bentley would be teaching in the training classes. They've just broken it into smaller chunks and made videos so that you can access it as you need it. It's worth taking some time to look around and see just how much information is available there. If you get lost, let me know, and you can reach me through the North Carolina DOT or through Bentley. I've got some custom learning paths that I've set up that I can forward your way that will kind of group similar training paths or training courses together. So you don't have to look all over the site to find them. I put them in one place. I'll try and get those up on the CAD Services webpage as well. But if you need them in the meantime, go ahead and give me a shout. Looking forward, North Carolina is developing some internal training for the North Carolina DOT employees. NCDOT employees will be able to sign up with CAD Services to get in one of these MicroStation or Open Roads Designer or ProjectWise classes. We have a large listing of folks who've already signed up for these courses, and we're going to start scheduling those at the end of this month and forward from there. We see this training as an ongoing thing, which should last. It'll just be ongoing. There's no end to the training that we've got set up right now. Many of the individual units, discipline units, are also working on their own unit-specific training modules. If you're interested in any of the unit-specific training modules, you would need to contact the unit CAD coordinator about their training availability. Right now, we're in talks about making the training materials available online in the future, but I don't have any particular details to share about that right now. So currently, the training is only going to be available for internal NCDOT employees. PEFs, again, we recommend learn.bentley.com or keep an eye on the website. We should be posting any materials that are available there. And this is an ongoing discussion. You saw this slide earlier today if you were in the earlier presentation. We're working on everything internally. We're working with the different disciplines, the different units to try and make these work sets the best they can be and work out any of the bugs. But it's not just us. This is an internal and external project. We need feedback from everybody out there to find out how this is working for you, how you are working with it, and if you need anything else fixed or created or modified to help you in your design process. So really, we want to make an open discussion. That's part of what this week is all about. We want to get everybody talking about what's going on, and we need to hear from you guys how we can make this workspace work better for everyone else. That's really what I've got for now. I'd like to introduce the question and answer portion of it, and I'm going to bring in Elizabeth Lee is with me, and we'll bring in Kyle, who's also the manager of the CADD Services, to help answer questions. If you guys have some questions you want to post in the chat, feel free to get started with that. And we will start Q&A if you got time.
Yeah, Ethan, there seems to already be a question in there. Jason asked, when will the managed workspace be available? It is currently available for testing in the training and development data source. We've run into a couple of issues that we're working through, but any of the CAD administrators can feel free to go into the testing project, the 10.9 testing project, create files in your particular units folder, and see what you get. Give us some feedback on what you see. Because I work with the managed workspace, but I am not familiar with everything that you are expecting to see from each of your individual disciplines. So that would be tremendously helpful to me to know if you're seeing everything you are expecting. We are also waiting for the updated standards to be either sent to us or pushed into that training and development data source so that we can actually see, push it to production as well. And I believe there's been some messages put out on Teams, and if not already, there will be an email sent out requesting that that stuff be done in the next day or two.
This is Jason. I did have a question. I was curious, do you guys have any plan on pushing out the non-managed workspace in any other method besides just the zip file? I know we're doing that now, but is that a long-term strategy, or is there the plans to have some sort of a executable that we can just run to get the updates or not down the road?
You've got a couple of options. You've got the Update Connect WS, which is Kyle, is that an executable?
Well, it's an application that's ran.
And you've also got the zip file, and then we've got the managed workspace within ProjectWise.
Well, but does I was thinking that the update workspace application didn't take into account the latest and greatest for the workspace. Is that correct, or I may be misinformed on that?
I believe in the future the intention is to keep it up to date.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, there's an old version of Update Workspace, and then there's a new Update Connect Workspace. And both of those should be available on the CADD Services webpage.
Okay, thank you.
You need to have the new one to get the Open Roads version of the workspace. If that's clear. Hopefully that's clear.
Does that one pick up more than there's a beta workspace and then there's another workspace? Do we know if the beta, which seems to be the latest and greatest with all the updates and all that, is that going to be available eventually? I think you mentioned earlier on that some of the stuff that is available can't be written to the computer. So that was the question. That's where that kind of came from. Currently, right now, I think you had mentioned at the very beginning that some of the stuff can't be written. So that was
Yes.
kind of where I was. Okay.
So for right now, the zip file is probably your best option for the initial install
Gotcha.
because it'll put those right in place. We are planning on including both the extra files and instructions on where to put them inside of the workspace. So if you update your workspace, everything you need should be included with that. You'll just have to
Okay.
manually put the files where they need to be.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure. And there was a question in the first presentation today about if we were going to document all this and put out a fact sheet, FAQ sheet. Yes, we are working on all of that. We do have the beginnings of an FAQ that we will put up on the CADD Services webpage as well. So as we get the documentation completed, we'll keep pushing it out to that webpage so you guys can see the latest and have all the information you need.
Okay. There was a question. I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment from Emily. She said, for installing the Connect workspace, the initial instructions indicate to rename the workspace setup config to workspace setup config underbar default and copy the workspace setup config from the C MicroStation Connect workspace, but cannot find that file in the C MicroStation Connect workspace folder. I guess she's asking if this is going to be resolved or has something changed. I'm just reading the question, so I'm not
right.
positive.
I'm not seeing what you're looking at right now, Emily. There should be, whenever you unzip that file, there should be 3 folders. One of them is program data, and that's where you will find those config files. I'm not sure about the instructions. That's not something that CADD Services put out. But you will see a configuration folder, you will see a program data folder, and you will see a projects folder. And those config files should be embedded down in the program data folder.
Okay, Oak has answered that that's
Right.
an older, the instructions that I'm looking at are an older set of instructions. And I
Okay.
guess that's not necessary anymore.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's what Ethan was saying, was if you use the zip file, it should do that for you.
Okay,
It should push it right out.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We got a question of why are we updating the config files quarterly? It may not be every quarter, but if we do need to update the configuration files, we want it to be on a regular basis so you know when it's coming. We also need to have time between updates for testing it to make sure that the configurations work with each other. So we thought that a quarterly update for configs would be a good time.
Okay, since you touched on that, I had a question. Does that mean that in the past there were frequent updates, sometimes daily, with the Update Connect? I mean, the Update Workspace application. Are you suggesting that that goes away and now it will be more on a quarterly basis, or is there a combination of the two? Like there's a major update every quarter, but there are less significant updates that happen as needed, like emergency things. Okay, great.
So this is kind of what I was talking about, where we split it into 2 parts. We've got the standards and we've got the configurations, right? And the standards are going to be the things that you use every day in design: your line styles, your fonts, your text, your template libraries, things like that you'll use within design. Those can be updated at any point. The CAD coordinators in each unit have access to those folders. They can make those updates as soon as you need them, push them right out to the managed workspace. What we're planning on is that we'll run a routine once a night where that'll push it over to the zip file and the Update Connect. So those can be on an ongoing basis. Those will get updated.
Okay.
Configuration half of it, all the CFG files that come with it, those are the ones that are going to be put out on a quarterly basis if we have an update.
Okay. That I think that's a great idea. I totally agree with that. So thank you.
Good. Sure. Great questions. What else do you have?
Anyone?
I know we're taking up your lunch hour, so if that's if you got a sandwich in your mouth, just type in the question. We can answer it.
We got 220 people on here. Somebody's got to have a question. They're asking, Zachary asked, I'm assuming that the Connect workspace will have an NCDOT interface. Is that the case? I guess is the question.
The Connect workspace will have an NCDOT interface. It's going to be the Open Roads interface as far as I know, but it'll have some NCDOT specific. I believe there's some tabs and some tools in there that are NCDOT specific.
I think
Oh, project.
yeah,
ahead.
project was explored.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it changes the interface so much, but you'll have data sets or data sources. And Elizabeth, feel free to talk over me on this. The interface should be the normal project-wise interface, but you'll have data sources for North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm completely understanding the question. Do you mean within the ORD and application, or are you talking about actually looking at ProjectWise Explorer? If there's a project that is developed off of ProjectWise in the ProjectWise environment, if it has the managed workspace associated with it, then when you open a file, depending on which folder you open, it will should load up that individual's unit's ribbon, tabs, if there are any. It should open up any of the DGN libraries specific to that unit. And there will also be an option to right click and use some of the combination interfaces that were previously associated with some icons. Does that answer your question?
I'm not seeing any responses, so I'm assuming
Okay.
that did. If
Okay.
not, I'll keep looking.
There was
There's a bunch of questions coming.
Yeah, there was a question about 10.8 and can we go back to, can we use older versions? As a rule of thumb, it's always easier to go forward in versions than it is to go backwards. So if you're using 10.8 and you want to move up to 10.9, that is going to be much easier than using 10.10 and try to move back to 10.9. Do we recommend it? I recommend that you stay with whatever version the project is supposed to be in and go with that. Having said that, it is easier to go forward than back. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. There's another question. There's a bunch coming. I'm trying to get it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to field these as much as possible.
Right.
Somebody had mentioned, you mentioned that ProjectWise will always have the most up-to-date version of ORD as approved by NCDOT. Does that mean that we could accidentally open a file from an older version of ORD in a newer version of ORD when NCDOT approves the latest ORD update? Are we supposed to automatically switch, or is this something that the NCDOT PM has to approve?
There's a lot in that question, Ashley.
I agree.
Let's see what we can tackle from that. So
Sorry.
no, that's okay. So when you have 10.10, and Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, we will be assigning either the 10.9 workspace or the 10.10 workspace, but go ahead.
The ORD will be assigned to the files. So if all you have on your machine is 10.10, then it's going to open it in 10.10. So yes, you will have to work with that your project manager to make sure if you've got say both versions, or if you're working, working in 10.10 and the DOT is still in 10.9, you're going to have to probably use your right click to open the correct version for the files while you're in that project, and you'll have to coordinate closely with the other people, because yes, if you open a file and your latest install is 10.10, it's going to open it in whatever the latest install of Open Roads is. We will work on setting up the managed workspaces so that there are two, and that it can check which version you have. We don't currently have that set up yet. I believe that there are there's some things in progress right now in development for ProjectWise to be able to determine very easily which version you want to associate with, and being able to have even interim versions of 10.10 on your computer, but that is not in place yet. I just feel like that's coming down the line, maybe in the next 2 or 3 releases.
And the last part of your question was, what happens if you're started in 10.9 and everybody else moves to 10.10? Moving from 10.9 to 10.10 with your project should not be difficult. It should smoothly move into 10.10, but that is something that you'll have to talk to your project manager about and decide whether or not you want to finish up in 10.9 or go ahead and move up to 10.10. There are some advantages to moving up, including, the latest version of the software should fix some bugs in the older version. But it will be up to the project manager when to move up.
I had a question myself personally. If you're working on a project currently right now, we back up stuff all the time. When we're getting ready, there's a fork in the road. We have 2 different options to go this direction or that direction, and then we go that direction. Then sometimes it comes back. NCDOT may come back and say, well, we like this one better. Is there a way on ProjectWise to get a backup of your files from, say, 2 weeks ago? Or let's say you're working and something breaks or something, unforeseen happens. Currently, we can back it up, or your firm can back them files up automatically for you. We do it weekly at Kimley Horn, or daily, multiple times a day. Is there a safety net built into ProjectWise to accommodate that?
There is nothing in ProjectWise regarding backups, but we probably ought to field that question towards Kyle, because that's more of a DIT process and procedure.
Okay. I think that's
Kyle-
going to be a question a lot of people might have,
Mhm.
so that's why I got to that.
In
Yeah.
ProjectWise, we can get backups from Bentley.
Yeah, we can
Oh,
we can request them. It's not a ProjectWise function.
Right. And
But
we
it's
also do
nothing.
support versioning of files, which saves a copy of the file.
Will that be supported by NCDOT then, versioning? Because we do use that. That was exactly what I was going to say. We use that when we're working in ProjectWise. We version our things, so just in case we have to come back to it when there's a big change, we version it and we come back to it. Is that something that NCDOT plans to support?
Yeah, we want to support that, and
Okay,
we encourage
great,
the use of versioning.
cool, perfect. Thank you.
There was a question up there about a class on how to use ProjectWise. I'm not sure. It depends on who you are. Yes, we do intend on having ProjectWise classes for the DOT employees. ProjectWise training. Otherwise, you could go to the Learn server, as Ethan had mentioned up in the presentation. We are always available to work together with you and answer any kind of questions you have.
From what I'm hearing, I'm reading another comment. From what I
Right.
hear, it's difficult to get a backup from Bentley. But we just covered that with versioning, which I think is the next bet.
Right.
So
It's not difficult to get one. It is time consuming. You
Okay.
will not request a backup and get it probably even within the next 48 hours.
Right.
But it's not a difficult process. You put in a ticket, they get you your file back. It's pretty simple. It just takes some time to do it, and not one that I would recommend if you have the
Right.
options of keeping versions
Right.
instead.
Yeah. Okay, great.
There's also going to be there's an addition functionality in ProjectWise where deleted files can be returned. So if someone accidentally deletes a file, there will be a copy of it somewhere that or there should be, that if you just contact the support, the CAD services support team, they could get it back from you. So if you just accidentally deleted it, which is a little bit different than keep trying to keep up versions.
Right.
Or if it just
Okay.
disappeared. I guess if it wasn't you, if somebody just accidentally removed it.
Yeah, I think versioning is helpful because we had I worked on a few projects where we ran into problems and we had to go back and start from scratch. So if I would recommend anybody on this call, if you can do versioning, definitely do it.
At least at important milestones. I don't know that I
Right.
would do it for every time you worked in a file,
Right. Yeah,
unless you want to just go back and get rid of previous versions as you go. But definitely at significant milestones.
Right. Yep. Okay. That's good to know. Does anyone else have any questions? They were kind of coming in hot and heavy. Things are starting to slow down a little bit. We're trying to field them as quickly as possible, but they're coming in and there's a bunch that just kind of happened all at once. If for some reason you did post a question and nobody responded, please type that again. I apologize. There's just a lot of different stuff here and we're trying to get through it all. So please go ahead and post that one more time. We're looking, there's nothing else coming out. Okay, here we go. Will NCDOT projects reside on NCDOT project-wise servers, or should PEFs plan to keep them local and upload later? How should server delays get addressed?
I guess it is policy that the projects should reside on the ProjectWise server. All NCDOT employees will be working on ProjectWise. PEFs, can't force them to use ProjectWise, but we would like them to. You will have to, in the end, upload your completed projects and any milestone submittals to ProjectWise. There should be no server delays as we are we're hosted on Bentley servers.
So I did have a question. So is NCDOT requiring that the projects live on the server, or is that just the recommendation, or is that a requirement to do that?
Right now, it's a recommendation. It may eventually become a requirement.
Okay.
The memo was put out that projects should be on ProjectWise or will be on ProjectWise.
Okay.
And just to clarify that, Kyle, you do mean the NCDOT data sources, not on
Yes.
the PEF's
Correct. Yeah.
data source. Okay.
NCDOT.
And just to address the server delay, if I'm understanding correctly, you're just talking about the bandwidth and the of being able to work back and forth from your computer to the servers. ProjectWise downloads all of the files that you need to your local computer while you're working. So any references, your active files, your entire workspace, everything is on your local machine. So there should not be any issues. Technically, you could disconnect from the network and should still be able to function.
And I've gone ahead and put the custom learn paths up in the chat. If anybody wants to access those, they should be able to get to them. And again, this is just where I've grouped some similar training modules together. What other questions can we answer? Anything else bugging you guys?
Looks like that might be it.
Okay. We will be around. If you have more questions, feel free to contact us.
Yeah, I wanted to just, from my standpoint, a final statement. I'm here to support you guys. That's my job. So please do not hesitate to message me or email me or our group, and we will, if you have a question, even if it's just something quick, if you're stuck, just shoot somebody a message, and I personally would be more than happy to jump on a call or share a screen with you and show you something to get you past a hurdle. Because I realize that the training is coming, but it's not for a few weeks. And sometimes there's just, you just get stuck somewhere. And I do not want you dealing with frustration over something as simple as just a question.
Okay. Well, I think we've wrapped up with the questions. Thank you, Ethan, Elizabeth. We hope that everyone has picked up a little something they can use today. Reminder, NC Lug will send out PDH credit receipts to attendees soon. And stay tuned for the next NC Lug presentation on NCDOT's ORD roadway rollout. Be sure to join us Friday at noon for the Q&A wrap-up. Please send any questions and at any time to ncdot.ord.implementation.invite@ncdot.gov. I will post this in the chat. Please put the unit name in the subject line of the email. If you have any suggestions for future NC Lug topics or questions for NC Lug, please email them at events@nclug.com. Be sure to tell others to become NC Lug members. It's free, so you can get the invites for upcoming events. Thank you for joining us today and look forward to seeing you the next time. Everyone have a great day. Thanks so much, Ethan, Elizabeth. Great presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And I just posted that link I mentioned. Thank you.